The Flash is the latest film in the DCEU universe, and it comes out at kind of an unfortunate time because the DC powers that be have brought on director and writer James Gunn to basically blow up the existing universe as we know and start all over and start fresh. So where does that leave Ezra Miller and this current Flash? Nobody knows yet. Will he be a part of the next universe? Will he what? Will he not? Nobody knows, but here we are, so let's talk about it. So in this film, the Flash finally has his own individual story to tell, and what happens is when he discovers a new aspect of his powers, where if he runs fast enough, he can actually travel back in time, he uses that ability to go back in time to the moment where his mom was killed, and as a result, his father was incarcerated for life. He's been dealing with this unfortunate tragic incident in his life all this time, so now that he has the ability to go back and change it, it kind of brings out the question from Jurassic Park. Just because you could, it doesn't mean that you should. Now, is it just me, or is anybody else getting kind of tired of all this multiverse storytelling? We had it in Spider-Man No Way Home, we had it in Doctor Strange Across the Multiverse, we had it Everything Everywhere All at Once, most recently in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. So I'm kind of multiversed out, to be honest, and it's because this particular movie, it didn't really need it, in my opinion. In the most recent other film with the multiverse, which is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, the multiverse was actually part of the story. It was the story, in fact. It was integral to the story, so it made sense to have that multiverse aspect to it. Whereas in this case, it didn't really need it, and it just kind of came off as an excuse to bring in all these other characters, these Easter eggs, and I didn't really buy it. This film makes no secret of his homage to Back to the Future and that storyline, because Barry goes back in time, he changes some stuff, creating a different future, etc., etc. So, and then they use it as an excuse to bring in Michael Keaton's Batman. No spoiler there, he's all over the trailer. A new Supergirl as opposed to Superman. It just kind of seems inorganic. Because you could have easily had the same Back to the Future story told, but with the same Snyderverse, if you will, actors. You could have had a younger Ben Affleck or a younger Henry Cavill, but they kind of use it as a reason to bring back the fan favorite Michael Keaton and to bring back or to bring in a new Supergirl character. And I just didn't feel like it was necessary. It just didn't feel organic to the story. And to be honest, I love Michael Keaton as Batman. I was really happy to see him back on the big screen. And he did a great job, of course. And I love the new Supergirl, Sasha Calle, the actress who played her. She looked great. She was great in the fighting scenes. But again, the story didn't really need it. And they didn't really end up that integral to the storyline. Speaking of the cast, Ezra Miller, you know, he's had his trouble in the real world with, you know, criminal charges and mental illness and whatnot, but I gotta say, that guy can act. I've been a fan of his ever since Perks of Being a Wallflower, and he really brings it in this movie. He plays two different versions of Barry Allen, and he did a really good job of being able to distinguish between the two. One is a more seasoned character, and another one is a younger version who's more, you know, naive and whatnot, so you can easily distinguish between the two. I think he did a really good job playing off of himself in a Parent Trap style. I thought that was really well done. Again, Michael Keaton, like I mentioned, was great. Sasha Calle was great, and you know, the cast overall is really good. Director Andy Muschietti, who I was a fan of from his It movies. He directed both It 1 and 2, I believe. But you know, he pulled it off. The action scenes were done really, really well, and I loved how like all the action scenes took place in broad daylight, so you could really see what was going on. There was no quick editing, because you know, most DC films, because they're about Batman or even other characters, a lot of them tend to take place at night, which means you can't really see what's going on. Whereas in this film, I believe all the action films took place in the daytime. So I love the fact that you could really see what was going on, and the action scenes were actually executed really, really well. So, you know, the story, I mean, the film was well made, it was well acted, but the writing for me just kind of fell short. The first and especially the second act, it just kind of dragged along for me. It kind of, I was like, just let's get to it. I know where it's gonna go. Let's get there already. But I kind of felt like, well, we got Keaton to come on board. Let's just use Keaton a lot, which they did. But you know, it just kind of, again, it wasn't really organic to the storyline, how they kind of shoehorned him in there. And I thought they could have done a smoother job of utilizing his character and his presence, but it just kind of drug along for a little bit. But then you get to the final third act, and you know, it was pretty nice, amazing action scene and a nice conclusion to the movie. And you know, of course, the movie with a multiverse movie like this, you get a lot of Easter eggs, you get a lot of cameos. And again, it's fun. At the same time, is it necessary to the storytelling? And again, I don't believe it was for this particular movie. In other movies like the ones I mentioned before, most of them, the multiverse aspect was integral to the story and was the reason for the story to take place. Again, for this particular one, I think they could have stuck to the Back to the Future plot line without having to go multiverse. I just felt like it was an excuse to go multiverse. And again, when a film kind of forces something along like that, it takes you out of it a little bit and it makes it more glaringly obvious. Well, it did in my case anyway. Like I mentioned before, the writing does kind of drag itself out. It kind of takes a while to get there. This movie, I believe, is about 2 hours and 30 minutes almost, and it didn't need to be that long. But another example of where I thought the writing kind of took a wrong turn was introducing the character of Sasha Calle of Supergirl. Superman or the Kryptonians, they are very hopeful, optimistic, good people. And again, if you watch The Man of Steel, you'll know that the S on the emblem is not actually an S, but a symbol of hope. That being said, Sasha Calle's character in this film, wow, kind of broody, kind of dark, kind of hateful. And I get it that she was kind of brought to that place emotionally and mentally because of the hardships that her character went through. At the same time, I would have liked to have seen a little more consistency with the Superman character from other movies, where you really have that feeling of hope, of optimism, and just general good. And while Sasha Calle did a great job in what she had, I didn't feel like her character was really properly written, and she was again just kind of put in there as a plot device almost, and didn't really need to be there. So, you know, the movie was good at times. It was definitely entertaining. There's humor sprinkled throughout, which actually worked really well. I laughed out loud several times, and the humor does really, really work. Again, the performances are good, the direction is good. So yeah, you kind of had all these positive elements throughout the film, but yet as a whole, it didn't really quite come together. At the end, I'm like, okay, so what? Which is a shame, because I wanted to like this movie. I like the character of the Flash. I like Ezra Miller. I like Michael Keaton. You know, I wanted this film to be really, really good, and it just kind of came off as meh. You know, I didn't hate it, but I kind of felt disappointed because I wanted to love it and I didn't. So for me, the Flash gets a 6 out of 10. Thanks so much for watching my review. If you like it, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't done so already, please subscribe to my channel, MC on Film, for more reviews in the future.